I have started this video due to the fact that I irritably note how many people continue to deny the existence of God and propose evolution as a fact. However, first I would like to give you some background. I do not expect to change any minds. In fact, that only happens when one is searching for an answer. Most people are not searching for an answer, only someone to ridicule and accuse, or for validation of their own beliefs. I do not pretend to be nonpartisan, but I also believe more in facing the truth than choosing a truth. God's existence would have to be as something, whether it be energy as we know it, or some form of energy of which we have no knowledge. I ask people who do not believe in him this question: if I come to you holding my hand behind my back and ask you if I am holding a pencil there, regardless of whether you say yes, no, or I don't know, does it change whether that pencil exists or not? If you think so, place a pencil somewhere and try to believe it away. It won't work. Thus, I ask, why do you believe it is any different with God? There is a saying, you may not believe in God, but he believes in you. The question really is this: does belief define reality, or is reality something to be sought and understood? We do not control the world around us with belief, so why do we think we can control anything else with it, except ourselves? So many people have benefited from Christianity, without even realizing it. Without thought, the laws of Western society were built upon the Bible and its belief system. Though many critics would attempt to point elsewhere, where do you think the first mention of murder, which is against the innocent not the guilty, being wrong, whether by an individual or a government? King David, in the Bible, was punished for killing an innocent man as an individual and a king to possess his wife. This alludes to the fact that no one is above the law, something unheard of in that time. Anyone who is an atheist or similar belief system must acknowledge that, religion aside, there is no absolute determination of what is right or wrong. You can discover this by asking yourself why something is wrong. Following this line of thought, we end at what society decides, also called law, or the individual, which leads to anarchy, which is lack of any law. If it is about what is legal or based on the beliefs of the individual, then Stalin killing millions of his own people was right, because it was legal and based on his beliefs about right and wrong. What Hitler did was right, because it was legal and based on his beliefs of right and wrong. Many will dismiss these concerns, saying these are outliers. My answer is quite simple: that is because of Christianity-based government that it is so rare in Western society. If you continue to disbelieve it, look towards those who have no Judeo-Christian values. In both the Middle East and Africa, where government-sanctioned and religious-based murder and torture is commonplace and not even newsworthy. I am not saying that Christian kingdoms long ago were perfect, but for their time, they were the best systems that existed with the least torture and murder. Just before the Crusades, which were started by the Muslims that complain about it, the Christian kingdoms lived in relative peace for the time. The same extends to the USA. While we are definitely not perfect, we are by far the best system, displaying the greatest amount of rights, unique rights, while still maintaining a cohesive society. With the rise of the misunderstood separation of church and state, this system has begun to fail more and more, losing the rights we should all cherish and were fought for by the forefathers of this country. Separation of church and state was never included in the Constitution, but when you read their writings, you find what was meant was the establishment of a state religion, which ends up being the detriment of other religions. This is opposed to the current view, that religion is supposed to stay out of government, when it really means that government should stay out of religion. Now to the actual presentation. In the following, I will show the logistics of creation vs evolution and how Darwin, knowing little about genetics, DNA, and protein production, misunderstood the difference between macroevolution and microevolution. Beginning at, no pun intended, the beginning, prevailing theory of the origin of the universe is the Big Bang Theory. Summary is this: a super-compressed or high-density and high-temperature state of the universe caused it to expand. The problems with this theory start at the actual existence of any particles, This flies directly into the face of one of the earliest and most reliable of scientific theories, one so old it has been renamed into a law, the laws of thermodynamics. The first of which is our subject of interest: energy cannot be created or destroyed, it can only change form. In other words, nothing can come from nothing. Why is this important or relevant? After all, it says energy cannot be created or destroyed, it says nothing of physical objects. All physical objects are made of energy, protons, neutrons, and electrons. The only difference in the matter is the arrangement of the energy. So, if energy cannot be created, where did this high density and high temperature environment come from? Such a thing as this would require massive energy, at the least, as space itself would not exist, and for it to come into fruition is also a subject of great debate, as it is still maybe something. The explosion that would create space and time also flies in the face of another theory that was renamed a law, Newton's laws of motion. If an object is at rest, it will continue to be until acted on by an external force. Expansionist theory that the universe will eventually collapse on itself are also flawed. If they are right, then everything we know about physics would have to be tossed out a window. Newton's laws of motion are fundamental to our understanding of motion of everything. Throwing up your hands and giving to the Big Bang theorists that their foundation of the world is a mystery, and we will never know where it came from, they only end up on equal footing with the Christian faith, and we have not even approached the beginning of our planet. How so? Christians believe in creation, by an omnipotent and all-powerful God, of whose origins are a mystery to us. As such, each side has to chalk this portion of their argument up to a miracle, for lack of a better term for Big Bang theorists. Will atheists, agnostics, etc. admit that? No. Fact of the matter is that what Arthur Conan Doyle said was completely true: once you have eliminated the impossible, whatever remains, no matter how improbable, must be the truth. However, what determines what is impossible? When one predetermines what is impossible without first analyzing the requirements of all possibilities fairly, then we eliminate things without thought or care. That is something I would put on the same level as guilty until proven innocent. So, we leave this portion and head for the origins of Earth and life itself. Origin of Earth, according to evolutionists, or Big Bang theorists, over billions of years, the dust of the Big Bang began to come together under the influence of gravitation pull. Some collections of this cosmic dust became suns, others planets. As astronomers have noted about heavenly bodies, any object not set in relative motion around an object of significant gravitational pull will be sucked into it. Why is this important? This, again, breaks the first law of thermodynamics. Massive energy would be required to put these bodies into motion at the appropriate speeds. Picture for a moment, a sun forming, planets. Now, the natural assumption of gravity will pull an object towards it. As we see in the photo, the object starts at rest and begins to be pulled slowly in the direction of the object. This is what happens when a relatively immobile object is affected by gravity: it heads straight for an object. While in motion, the object changes trajectory slightly, but will eventually hit another object. Why bring this up? When conducting space missions, computers are used to calculate the speed necessary to stay in orbit without falling to the Earth, and that speed must be maintained. If this speed is not naturally achieved in orbit, then how was this speed achieved during the formation of the Earth, Sun, Moon, and the rest of the solar system? Think of the chances of 8-9 if astronomers decide to include Pluto, planetary bodies achieving the exact speed necessary to maintain an orbit around an object like the Sun for that length of time as is claimed. Too fast, it would fly off into space; too slow and it would eventually strike the Sun. Now, look further off, and astronomers have discovered other suns with planets orbiting them too. This being the case, what caused all those planets to suddenly find the speed we have to calculate? How come all we have found are planets circling stars? Why not stars circling planets? Already, we are looking at miracle number 2 for evolutionists and the Big Bang theorists. Christians are still at 1. As we study the planets, we also recognize something as we look at galaxies, planets, and solar systems all look similar to atoms, neutrons and protons forming the center sun, and the electrons representing planets. For galaxies, we look at them and we see a huge bright center, with smaller lights circling around it. Smaller, larger, it doesn't matter, it is all the same. Moving on.